Call tonight's meeting of the Pittsburgh City Commission to order. It's January 23rd. Everybody please stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chaplain Pete Mayo, would you come forward for the prayer?
Yes, thank you. It's always a pleasure to come and offer this. Let us pray. Blessed are you, Most High Almighty God. We call to you and ask you to bless our city and its commission meeting this evening. We thank you for your many blessings and for all the good citizens who make our city the great place that it is. Assist us with your wisdom in our discussions. Help us to discover the common ground that unifies us as a community and to stay mindful that it is your work we do and your people we serve. We pray for beneficial weather and for the needs of the most vulnerable. We pray all this in the name of all that we each hold sacred and holy. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. Open the meeting for public input. Anybody have any public input? Please come forward. If you would, please state your name and address and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please.
Sure. My name is Janice Arthur. I live at 308 West 8th here in town. I want to speak on Medicaid expansion. I am a member of the Crawford County, Kansas Democrats, and I say that only to say why I am acquainted with and had the pleasure of listening to Jenna Repass, who is the chair of the Kansas Democratic Party. She attended one of our meetings and talked to us on a number of topics, but one of those was the need for Medicaid expansion. One of the examples she used was her own daughter, aged out of her parents' insurance, and then had a terribly difficult time gaining insurance for herself because she fell into the gap. To qualify, Kansans have to make a little bit of money or that much money. Well, she was just out of college. She was in the middle. And she just had a terrible time getting it. And I mean, if that's happening to Jenna's daughter, it's bound to be happening to hundreds or even thousands of other young Kansans. And probably not only young ones. I know one of my nieces could have definitely benefited from Medicaid expansion. She worked, even though she had a chronic illness, she had MS, but she had to have insurance, so she had to work. Even on the days when she could barely move, she had to get up and go. It would have been better had she had some backup and some comfort and care from the state that she lives in. Those are the personal stories. But there are also dollars that we are losing, just leaving on the table. And we are also losing healthcare workers, because if you can go as a nurse to Oklahoma or Missouri and make so much more money, why stay in Kansas? So they don't. So we have a drain of healthcare workers. We have a drain of, and think of everybody who works in a hospital, not just a nurse, but the phlebotomist who takes your blood and the person who reads your x-rays. And it's a very large group of people, and we're losing them. And we're losing Kansans because, again, they can go to Missouri or Oklahoma or Arkansas or any of the other 40 states that have had the good sense to pass Medicaid expansion and have a better life. I'll answer any question, but that's about all I had to say. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening, Bert.
I'm Bert Patrick. I too would like to speak in support of our City Commission, you officially adopting the Alliance for a Healthy Kansas proclamation in support of Medicaid expansion. Your voice counts, particularly because you have been elected by the citizens of this city to act for them, to be the voice for them. And your decisions resonate. They resonate with our elected officials who represent us here in Crawford County, in Topeka. That is the two state representatives, Representative Chuck Smith and Representative Ken Collins, as well as with our Senator, Tim Schellenberger. We know that the leaders of both the Kansas Senate and the Kansas House absolutely refuse to allow this issue to be debated in committee or to be brought to the floor for a vote. Why? I would think that here we are allowed as citizens to come forward before you, our elected representatives, and to raise questions, raise issues, and you give us the privilege of speaking. And yet, this issue can't be brought out of committee. It can't be voted on the floor of the Kansas Senate or the Kansas House. Why is that? I think our elected officials who go to Topeka should have to also confront that question and answer to us. They are representing us there. But your voice, your decision to support the proclamation of the Alliance for a Healthy Kansas for Medicaid expansion will go a long way to letting those representatives know that their voice of the citizens of Pittsburgh has been heard. The other issue that I'd like to raise is a very personal issue. 3 of you commissioners are in the healthcare field, or you are a member of your family is in the healthcare field. I thought about that this morning, Mayor, because I was at the hospital for breakfast, and 6 PSU nursing students came there for breakfast this morning. And I thought, where are those students going to go to work after they graduate? Every likelihood is that they will go to one of our neighbors because they will earn better salaries, and they will be thinking about what we think about when we're looking for work. Where can I earn a good salary? Where can I provide for my family? And the odds are that they will go to one of the states where they can earn a better salary. I know, if I may use your particular case, your wife is a member of the PSU nursing department, and she is training those young people that came in for to eat there this morning, late this morning. And you, Dr. Siegley, are a medical provider for the citizens of this city. And you too have the issue of hiring good nurses. And those chances decrease when they can leave Kansas and make better salaries.
Bert, I'm going to get, in the interest of time, you've had 5 minutes, so I just want to see if you could wrap it up, please.
Okay, thank you. I
you.
sometimes get
Thank you.
carried away, so thanks for bringing me back to my time limitation. I just want to summarize by saying this. Please, be the voice that champions those who don't have a voice when it comes to medical care, who have to make that very difficult decision that most of us don't have to make. Do I buy food? Do I pay for the rent? Do I get the car fixed? Or do I go to the doctor and pay out of pocket? That is a life-changing experience that most of us never have to confront. So thank you for your time, and thank you for allowing me to run over. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Harriet Bachner. I live at 611 North Free King Highway here in Pittsburgh, and I too want to speak about Medicaid expansion. This coverage gap that's been discussed is those people who earn between $9,447 and $24,860 and have a family with 3. So those that have income in that gap cannot qualify for Medicaid, and they probably can't afford to buy insurance in the marketplace. But I wanted to address how Medicaid expansion will make a difference to the people who own businesses in our city. This gap in coverage affects the cost to policing, to criminal justice, to behavioral and mental health systems, and low-income Kansans become more vulnerable and have an increased likelihood of being involved in the criminal justice system or having some type of mental disorder that puts them vulnerable and getting into trouble and not being able to receive the services that they really need. The counties and states that have expanded Medicaid have experienced a 10.4% fewer property crimes, reductions in violent crime, reductions in robbery, theft, and assault. So I think that we can look at this from a financial point of view in terms of how this will serve the well-being of our city. Also, employers in our city would be more likely to have a healthier workforce. We have many people who are low income who are working 2 or 3 jobs even, who cannot still, even with 2 or 3 jobs, afford to buy health insurance, and they may still be in that gap. So with their ability to have Medicaid, they'd be more likely to seek out the health care that they need when they are sick, rather than waiting till they're really, really sick, going to the ER to receive treatment. And, you know, who pays for that when they end up at the ER? Those of us who do have insurance, we have higher fees with our insurance and higher health care fees. So my point that I want to make also, in addition to the points that have been made by Mrs. Arthur and by Mr. Patrick, is that your support of Medicaid expansion enhances the well-being of this city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Hello. I'm Jim Brumfield. I live in Pittsburgh, Kansas. Oops, I think I just changed the agenda. I've been hearing these rumblings about Medicaid expansion. I understand, if I understand correctly, Medicaid expansion, Medicaid the lack of Medicaid creates a medical emergency and a cost increase to medical services for those who seek it because they don't have this coverage. And we end up paying it. That helps come out of my pocket. Also, understand that we have a brain drain. Well, it's too late for me. I think mine has already been drained. But maybe some of these young people can be encouraged, like Mr. Patrick mentioned, these nurses and young medical people can be encouraged to stick around if they were employed in services that would be provided by this. So I would encourage you to look at these issues and consider them in whatever capacity you might have. Thank you.
Thank you.
You don't think I'm crazy? I'm Melissa Rhodes, and I don't even live in Pittsburgh. I'm at 506 North First in Arma. But I was asked to come and speak, and I will say Pittsburgh Council is probably one of the highest group of people that other communities look up to. You guys have done fantastic thing in Pittsburgh, and I know that the other surrounding communities look at that in awe. And I do too. I spend some time in rural economic development. And I look to what Darren's doing and what Jay's doing, and when just kind of like, yeah, we can do this for all of Crawford County. But I was asked to come because I'm also a retired teacher. And I've dealt with the lack of Medicaid once that family with children hit that limit to where they lose their services. So I had one student who, mental health issues through the roof. My background is special education with behavior disorders. So I had those kids every day, all day. And his parents did the right thing. They both worked 2 jobs. She took on a 3rd job, and they wanted to get off services. They wanted to say goodbye to their Section 8 housing. They wanted to stand on their own 2 feet and with their 3 kids. Well, as soon as they hit that threshold, our little 12-year-old lost all of his mental health therapy, and he lost his medication. And that changed the trajectory of the life of that child and that entire family. Because after a while, I get a text that says, oh my gosh, remember that kid? He's really done it this time. And it involved some physical aggression toward a young girl. And I can't help but think, I had called services. I had called mental health and said, listen, we've got to do something. You don't know what's going to happen with this boy, because I saw what was going on in the classroom. You know what they said? Nothing we can do. They made too much money, and they lost their Medicaid. So our Medicaid expansion would kind of take that gap and help those people stand on their own 2 feet and keep moving. And I have said this, I've had these conversations with Monica Murnan when I worked for the state as a vocational rehab counselor. And part of those people, a lot of the people that you see homeless, many of those were my clients. And they were in that gap where as soon as I start making $1, for every $2 I make, my Section 8 housing goes up. I lose $1 of my food stamps. And we need that 18 to 24 months where that's not touched. Because if I loan money to my kids, which I don't anymore, but when I loan money to my kids and they said, well, I'll pay you back. You know how that goes. But I'll pay you back. It takes them longer to get on their feet. And so I'm asking you guys to do this proclamation to support Medicaid expansion, because if you do it, when I go around to Girard and to Arma and to Frontenac and ask them to do the same thing, I want to be able to say, you know what? Pittsburgh had the foresight to already do it. They're already supporting this. And I would appreciate that. I'm also the Democratic candidate for House of Representatives District 2. And I will go in that position and say, listen, guys, we need to do this for all of us. And we are blessed because we have community health. Not everybody across the state has that. So that's all I've got. Any questions? Good to see you guys. I miss you
Thank you.
guys.
Anyone else? All right, thank you all for your comments, appreciate that. Close this part of it and go into the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment before we get started on the consent agenda,
Sure.
if that's all right. It has to do with the last meeting. I'd like to move to amend the outcome of the motion previously presented at the last meeting on January the 9th. New information has come to light that changes the outcome of the vote during the reorganization of the Board of Commissioners. A motion was made to nominate Chuck Munsell for president of the board. A second was made to the motion, and at that time, a vote should have been taken regarding the motion. No other motions are to be made when a motion is on the floor. The mayor allowed another motion to be made with a second. That was an improper motion and should not have been considered at all. The city attorney should have corrected the matter at that moment, but did not. The mayor proceeded to take a vote on the first motion for Chuck Munsell, which was, the vote was 2-0, as there was none opposed in the negative. The mayor then called for the second motion with 3 yes votes. He did not call for the no votes until Commissioner Munsell asked for the no votes to be recorded. The abstentions on the first motion by the other 3 commissioners meant they count with the yes votes. Therefore, it is considered to be a 5-0 vote on the first motion for Chuck Munsell, as he was properly approved as president of the board. Now, according to Robert's Rules of Order, on page 45, section 5, the chair must always call for a negative vote. So consequently, is the nomination for president of the board null and void? Should Chuck Munsell have been installed as president of the board? The mistake to have a commissioner take the oath of office not voted in the proper manner needs to be corrected by giving the oath of office to Commissioner Munsell as president of the board.
Well, I voted no, so to say that I abstained, I did not abstain.
There was nothing said at the time. All those in favor say aye, all those opposed. There was no opposition mentioned at the time. And I think that's where the problem would lay. So with that being, none of the 3 of you said anything, so usually it goes with the prevailing side.
Well, Commissioner Brooks, I appreciate you pointing that out. In my first official duty as mayor last time as making a mistake. Obviously, I erred on that.
Oh, no, but I felt like Henry should have corrected it, because there was another motion we were doing at the time, and he corrected that. There was another piece, so I'm just,
And I think to be honest, any one of the commissioners could have probably pointed that mistake out to me. So I wish we would have done it then and not, 2 weeks later. But Henry, any suggestions on how to proceed with this?
I mean, I haven't seen the tape, so I'm not aware of 3 commissioners not voting on a motion.
the terminology was not used, all those opposed.
That I don't know.
That may
I
very
haven't
well
seen
be
the
the
tape,
case,
but-
because I know when I didn't.
And it
use
wasn't on the second one too, which,
In the second vote, I didn't do it either, but someone pointed it out to me, so, but
well,
they didn't. on the
whenever
first
he called for,
Yeah.
the vote, as far as by word of mouth, so I'm just saying, is this a proper way to do things, and should it have stood? Because most of the time, abstentions are counted as on the prevailing side, so according to the league book and to Robert's Rules of Order, so what should we do about that?
Well, the city doesn't follow the Roberts Rules of Order. That's not, they've never adopted the Roberts Rules of Order.
And so what about the league book?
Well, I mean, the league book is a guidebook that, yes, you're exactly right, if there's an abstention on a vote, but people typically come out and say that they're abstaining from a vote.
Well, on something like that, you wouldn't abstain, but the term was not used, all those opposed.
I don't know.
So isn't that a
I didn't see
correct
that.
way, a procedural way?
If you want to vote again tonight, you certainly can. If that would allay your concerns.
I just was asking the question.
I would entertain motions to, if that's what the other commissioners want, is to revote, because obviously there were errors made on my part in the first 3 minutes of my new term, so,
Well, you know, in the past, we've always been about rules and regulations and following protocol. So, and it's nothing against you, I just wanted to know where we stand and what we're doing.
Say, if you're concerned, you can,
Well, wouldn't the other motion, original motion, have to be withdrawn first by whoever made the motion?
well, I think you.
The
you
first
voted
motion was on the
Like
floor.
The one 2 weeks ago.
But it was a nomination.
It was a motion and a second.
my understanding, we had two nominations at the same time, so I addressed the first nomination first. And according to Commissioner Brooks, that was, by not calling for all those opposed, that was an error, so, I don't know if the proper thing is to revote, or what the proper,
If you're concerned about it, I'd suggest you just revote.
okay.
At that time, did you not feel that it was important to bring it up at that time? Or the fact that there was two motions made back to back, different, I mean, I've never seen that happen before.
So you voted on one motion and then the second motion. They weren't voted on
So
together.
the first one didn't prevail over the second one, and then take the vote, and then go on to the second one after that? With the terminology being,
I
you know,
believe that the first vote failed.
it failed,
The
but
second
there,
vote passed.
but the wording, that's what I'm asking about, the wording, because the term was never used, all those opposed. So anything else we've done, you know, has been that way. So all those in favor say aye, all those opposed, same sign. It's always been that way, so
Yes, and I guess I wasn't
why is
aware
this
that didn't
different?
occur.
Help me understand, why is this different?
So if I could, I mean, I don't think anybody wants to be president of the board under controversy. So I think the fairest, simplest thing to do would be to rectify that by revoting.
Well, you know, I'm glad you brought this up, Cheryl. We all follow procedures. We try to, and just like you said, the procedure was to ask for all in favor by saying aye, all opposed, same sign. That never occurred. Dawn says now she voted no. I never heard her vote no. But if she did, that's fine. But the other two, you know, we're elected to make decisions, and whether you're opposed or in favor, that's our job to vote. I don't understand why you two chose not to vote. You know, it's not the end of the world, that if I don't get president of the board, which I don't think is gonna change anything, but I was elected to make decisions, and those decisions, means voting aye or same sign, no. I know some people out there that's listening, probably don't agree with every vote I make, but they expect the commissioner to make a vote, whether it's in favor or opposed. My question is,
Well,
why,
and my point would be, we did that on the next vote.
after I brought it up,
On the,
yeah.
but I mean, we voted in favor of putting Dawn in, and I might just say that she was the top vote getter 2 years ago, and it's my understanding that prior policy or prior procedure from the commission was the top vote getter was the next person to be president, and then the second place vote getter would be bottom after
Well-
that. So that didn't follow suit 2 years ago. So I don't know that, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think if we wanted to clear it up, we could clearly have a new vote tonight and
Well,
put it to rest.
I understand what you're saying, Stu. Policy, I've been the commissioner, now it's my fourth term, and I've never, ever had somebody said the policy is the top voter.
I've never heard that.
Gets to be the president of the board, that's a decision.
Is that not true?
I think it's more practice. It's been
Okay,
practice,
not
not
policy,
policy.
but practice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
so, thank you.
So in all this conversation, I do have a clarification from Henry. So if a commissioner doesn't overtly say I abstain, by the absence of any verbal confirmation or deny, is that an abstention? Is that interpreted as an abstention?
If they just don't vote,
Right.
yes.
So what's the difference between abstaining and conflict of interest then? Because it isn't something where you wouldn't abstain from,
Well,
so,
you can abstain if you have a conflict of interest.
but there wasn't on this.
Right.
So, okay, just so I understand
There
that.
were two motions on the floor at the same time, so, I mean, I took that as there were obviously gonna be two different sets of votes, so, that was a mistake on my part. I should have called for all those opposed. I didn't. But the question to me tonight is how do we proceed from that to moving forward?
Well, since I'm the person involved, I still would like to know why, if you were opposed to my nomination, why you didn't vote in the
Who
next.
says we didn't vote?
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
just because
we're-
student call.
There
it
was
doesn't mean-
Hard to
no,
say we didn't.
there was no verbal, I mean, the question wasn't posed, all those opposed, and then it wasn't verbally said by the commission. I mean,
What
when
wasn't
you
verbally
say
All those
you're all
opposed.
those in favor, you say aye. And then all those opposed, same, he never said all those opposed, same sign. So it was silence from the three.
Wasn't it a fiat accompli when three voted for, and two would
But
have
when
voted
there's a
against?
motion on the floor any other time, you vote on that and then you move on to the next one. So that's what was confusing.
Okay.
Just
Oh.
want to know how we're doing it.
I don't think it's gonna change anything, but
Nope.
you just asked the question, how do you know we didn't vote no? I didn't hear any.
Well, we go back and look at the record. We've
Yeah.
gotta have a record someplace, right? I mean,
Listen to the tape.
why don't we go back and look at the record and see what it shows?
And then what will happen after that if you don't vote?
Then,
Or we
That's up to-
re-vote.
Let's just revote. This is embarrassing.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on,
It's about
Tech- on a-
procedure.
I know,
it's a
but-
They're all
technicality.
about procedure.
It's a
You've
technicality.
always been about
Everything's-
procedure.
I'd call
So
for
it is
a
or it
motion
isn't.
for the president of the board.
so moved.
No,
You
do
got to
I have one?
nominate somebody.
Well, first of all,
No, we've got a motion on the floor.
No, I'm
That
asking
doesn't
for a
mean
motion.
anything.
I just said, so moved.
When there's a motion, there's
when you have a
discussion.
second, then that means you can discuss it, dog.
Okay, but
Special motion.
I move that we have another vote on the president of the board.
You know,
I'll second.
okay.
Okay, it's been, any discussion on that? We have a motion and a second to revote for president of the Board of City Commissioners.
who is it?
There's a
No, it's
motion to do it.
motion to have another vote.
So the first time we voted, I was nominated. Are you talking about voting for mine or for the?
We're talking about having a new vote for the president's position. That's the motion on the floor, correct, Doc? That's your motion?
Right.
To revote tonight. Okay, motion and second. All those in favor of revoting for the president of the board signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. All right, that motion carried. And now I'll entertain a motion for the position of president of the Board of City Commission.
I nominate Chuck myself for president of the board.
I second that nomination.
I nominate,
Oh,
Wait, what?
see, that's where the problem lies.
Oh, we got
Okay,
into
so there's a motion, and a second on the floor for Chuck to
Okay,
be
you're right.
president. So any discussion on
You're
that? All those in favor of Chuck being president of the board signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay.
nay.
Okay.
Nay. Motion failed, or motion for Chuck failed. Any other motions for president?
I move that Don McNay be president of the board.
I would second that. Any discussion? All those in favor of Don being president of the board signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
No.
Nay.
Thank
Motion
you.
carried.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes,
Appreciate
thank you.
that. The procedure means everything, Stu. Thank you.
I
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
clearing that
And
up. I
feel
think.
free to point that out to me as it's happening the next time, if you know that I'm doing something wrong. Don't-
Well, there was too much going on then, so with
Okay.
two, it was too
All right, moving on.
complicated.
So are we okay with
Stu,
leaving?
Mayor, hold
Yes.
on one second. So the last thing that I want to clear up is, it's not fair to blame Henry for this. Number one, everything that happens in this room regarding the staff is on me, so feel free to blame me, but I don't want anybody to leave this room to think that Henry's job isn't here to police this board and how it operates. We do not have Robert's rules. Each one of you, if you see something happen that didn't go the way you want it, the appropriate time to bring it up is obviously when you see it. And obviously, if you catch it later, then we can clean it up like we did tonight. But that rests with me, and I apologize to you because your first 3 minutes wasn't a glorious 3 minutes. But I'm glad we got it right, and we will continue to work on
Well,
it. But I don't
thank you,
think
Darren,
Henry
but
needs to be
I
blamed.
too accept full responsibility for that. That was my error, so I apologize.
Well, on the other hand, you know, there were seasoned members on this board who should have pointed that out also. And it wasn't me because I'm not a seasoned member, but there are those of you who have been on this board for a long time that should have noted that and pointed it out.
Well, I think you're a seasoned member, Doc, and the problem that happened the first time was going to happen again
Well,
with
you know,
you making a
you
motion.
and
so-
Cheryl and Don are the oldest members of the,
Well, you
Members
know,
of the
you've
board.
been here 4 years, you should know a little bit about the
I'll
procedure.
point out something in the league guidebook also, since we're referring to that tonight, that one of the things in there, it says, if you know something, it's very good decorum not to have gotcha moments in city commission meetings. That doesn't really accomplish a whole lot, and it doesn't foster good feelings. So if we could, handle these things as they happen, it would be much better for all. So let's move on to the consent agenda.
I have a comment to yours.
Sure.
It is not a gotcha moment, because I have been on the receiving end of this many times, and it was not that. It wasn't brought up like that whenever it was directed at me before, so.
Okay.
I'm just saying that from here on out, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
Everybody help me make better decisions. Thank you. All right, consent agenda. Cheryl, did you still want to pull A off, or do we have that taken care of?
No, I'll just pull it off.
All right, you pull it off?
Yeah.
All right.
Or no, just go
okay.
through with it, yeah.
So no other commissioners want anything pulled off? All right, let's call for
I move to approve the consent agenda.
second,
been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda by roll call vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry, roll call vote.
Brooks.
Yes.
Height.
Yes,
McNay.
Yes.
Munsell.
Aye.
Sigley.
yes.
all right.
Aye.
Motion passed. Consider the following. Item A, Leafy Greens Farms Project. Consider the recommendation of the Economic Development Advisory Committee, EDAC, to approve the request submitted to Leafy Green Farms to reimburse Leafy Green Farms an amount equal to 10% of the total project costs associated with the construction of a sustainable nutrition center with the city's investment funded through the revolving loan fund, earmarked specifically for infrastructure improvements to be paid upon completion of the project and not to exceed $159,485. Thank you, Blake.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. You'll recall about 3 months ago, we brought you a project involving Leafy Green Farms. That project involved a fabrication facility at their newly acquired South Joplin Street location. That project, thanks to the support of the commission, is moving forward. Leafy Green Farms now has had another opportunity arise, and as a matter of fact, the grant application that would help make this next project possible. The deadline is coming up pretty quickly, so we had a meeting of the EDAC a couple of weeks ago so that they could consider this request. Leslie Monty with Leafy Green Farms is going to walk you through a presentation in just a moment about a sustainable nutrition center. As you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, this would potentially be located in the city's northeast industrial park. You've received an advance copy of the PowerPoint that Leslie is about to walk through. You received tonight. I apologize for the enormous paper. As I started printing this out today, I didn't know if it was just my old eyes, but I had to print it this big in order for me to be able to see all the numbers. This is a pro forma that was prepared by CJ Bedart, who's also with us here tonight. This was requested as part of the EDAC consideration, just to dig a little deeper into the viability of the project should they get the grant application. So that information is being provided to you tonight, and CJ can answer any questions that you may have related to the pro forma. But before we get to that, I want to ask Leslie to come up and tell you a little bit about the project that's possible for Leaf Greens. You can just go to the right.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for your time. I'm Leslie Monty with Leafy Green Farms. I'm the Director of Communications. I'm the one who's preparing the grant. I'm the one who prepared all this information. So I prepared this to kind of give you an idea of what we do. I think you might be familiar with us, but our mission has always been to raise the nutritional needle in areas where it's needed most. We began here because this is our home, and each farm we have is constructed from a repurposed shipping container, standard 8x40, and they use less than 10 gallons of water per day, 90% less than a traditional farm, but they still produce the same amount of food as a 2 to 3 acre farm. No herbicides, no pesticides, and that helps us remain dedicated to being good stewards of our land and throughout our communities. And growing food where it's needed, it reduces our carbon footprint and provides freshest product to our citizens. The Sustainable Nutrition Center is an innovative and essential piece of our commitment to improving health equity for all citizens. We don't think of America as being an impoverished nation, but 34 million people report being food insecure, and that means 1 in 8 households experience food insecurity every day, and they lack access to an affordable diet. There are systems in place to help address this. Food hubs, food banks, and food pantries are dedicated to meeting these needs, but they are limited on the quality of food that they receive for distribution. Most of what they get is going to be shelf-stable, non-perishable, processed items, and that's due to availability and the cost of the items, as well as factoring in the cost of the shipping and the travel for the products to arrive. Throughout 2023, we participated in the Local Food Purchase Assistance Program through the KDA. This program earmarks funds to use locally grown Kansas foods and provide them to Kansas food banks and pantries. Throughout this program, we had 3 operational farms, and with what we had, we were able to provide to Wesley House and the Lord's Diner here in town, and we did that directly, kind of cutting out all that travel and stuff, and we were able to provide them, I think, over 40,000 pounds, if that's correct. That'll be on the next slide. We were invited to participate in this again, and seeing how much need there was just in our state. Again, that was just one food bank, and we only provided to 2 places, so there's a much larger need. These are some mock-up drawings of what a sustainable nutrition center would look like. You see, you can have 10 or 20 farms stacked up there, and then we have a large processing facility. That's where we would process, package, get it ready for distribution, and get it out to the consumer. This is the proposed location. The city has agreed to offer this land if we need it.
And Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, as you look at that map, again, this is in the Northeast Industrial Park. The property to the northeast of where you see the shaded boxes, that's Unique Metal. So Adam Endicott's place is right there. So directly north would be Kendall Packaging, a brand new wholesale electric building, just to kind of orient you on where geographically that property is.
Thank you.
Thank you. And this is very blurry on my screen, but this is kind of just a mock-up of what the building would look like. You have a processing center. We have a little classroom, couple bathrooms, office, open area, kind of just a standard building. It's 4,000 square feet, I believe, approximately. And so that brings me to how we're going to fund this. There's a grant that Blake mentioned. It's called the Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure Program. And basically, it's a partnership through the U.S. Department of Agriculture with the Kansas Department of Ag. And it's to strengthen middle of the supply chain food systems, new revenue streams for each state's producers. And these funds will support expanded capacity for aggregation, processing, manufacturing, storing, transporting, wholesaling, and distribution of locally and regionally produced food products, including specialty crops, which what we grow, leafy greens, are considered specialty crops. These are a couple of letters of support that we have received for this grant application. We have a couple we have one from Jake LaTurner's office, Senator Moran's office, but these two were the most important ones to me because they came from the actual places that got the actual food. You can see the one from Wesley House. She mentions that they have experienced a 40% increase in families accessing their food pantry services. And we provided to them a lot, and every time we showed up there, we would always talk to them and say, hey, how's it going? You know, what do you need from us? And their answer is always, more. Are you coming next week? And then over here on the Kansas Food Bank, 4,000 pounds, not 40, sorry. They secured over 4,000 pounds of fresh, healthy, and nutritious produce. And they serve 85 counties throughout the state. And with what we have done so far, we serve not even half of one county. So with this expansion, we would hope to open this up and serve more all across Kansas. This is just a breakdown of the funds that we are asking for the building. We're gonna have solar panels on top of it to help reduce those costs and reduce our carbon footprint even further. And then the construction of the building is just there on the top. That is everything I have, unless you have questions.
How do you derive your income?
Where does it all come from? Like,
What?
right now? Like
Well, how will you derive your income eventually?
we'll sell our produce to the food banks or to other customers.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah.
Do the LFPA?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yep.
We have a verbal agreement through both Kansas Food Bank and
Harvesters.
Harvesters out of the Kansas City area. Again, essentially covering all of Kansas. One contract is for 80 cases a month, the other is for another 80, so it's 160. And then a third is still on the table for essentially 240 cases of lettuce. That basically breaks down to, about 1,000 pounds a month that we would be moving out of here. So we already have commitments for a long-term strategic plan. LFPA is basically a year-by-year renewal. Now again, most of your state representatives have an initiative to use locally sourced food. So to guarantee that LFPA is going to continue year after year, I can't guarantee that. We have spoke with other food banks in Tennessee, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Texas to date, which all are utilizing LFPA funds. And I'm informed if anything, that's going to expand, and programs like that are just going to piggyback. So with that knowledge, that is essentially our goal is to sell to those who need it most and move that nutritional needle. We could sell to restaurant groups. In fact, we've been approached by several, selling somebody a, hydroponic lettuce. They turn a $15 salad into a $20 salad is not what we're looking to do. We're actually looking to get this in people's hands who actually need it and can benefit from locally sourced, non-pesticide, herbicide-free produce, leafy greens, so to speak.
What vegetables do you grow in there besides lettuce?
We can grow pretty much any kind of leafy, kind of non-deep rooted vegetables. So if you're talking your arugulas, some green onions, things like that, a lot of Swiss chards.
Swiss chard, plenty of herbs. There's a lot of varieties of lettuce that people don't even know about because they're not usually seen around here. We could grow edible flowers in there. We can grow wildflowers in there. Just anything that doesn't have like a thick, heavy root that won't just kind of topple over. Usually does really well in there.
So currently, are you donating to Wesley House and Lord Steiner, or are they reimbursing you?
It goes through the food bank.
The
The
food
food bank reimburses us,
Kansas.
and we just deliver straight to them because it cut out that middle, that,
Sure.
we
Yeah,
don't want to
with Kansas
deliver
Food
to
Bank serving
Wichita. and
85
then-
counties all the way up Atwood,
Yeah.
Kansas, down to Pittsburgh, Kansas, quite a wide swath, so if we can help out a little bit, reducing the carbon footprint from, driving.
Right,
it
yeah, like our
across the
mail
state,
goes to
yeah.
Kansas City.
Yeah, exactly, like that. Yes.
Any other questions?
Exciting project.
It is.
Done a great job.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, as the agenda request mentions, the value of this project is approximately $1.59 million, and Leslie's numbers there is on the screen. So their request is very similar to projects we brought you in recent past, 10%, which would essentially be up to $159,485. That would be paid on the back end of the project upon completion, when Leafy Greens would supply verification that they did spend that amount of money. So we would bring that to you tonight for your consideration.
There's no further questions, I'll move to approve.
Second.
Then moved and seconded to approve the request. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Thank you.
Motion carried. All right, item B. Thank you. Real estate sales contract. Bonzo, consider staff recommendation to sell approximately 5.85 acres of real estate to Dustin Bonzo and Ellen Bonzo for a total purchase price of $29,000.
Mayor, Commissioners, so a couple of years ago, we purchased a farm to turn into an industrial park, and as part of that agreement, we turned around and sold a house and the associated acreage, which shows up as the north part of this red square, to the Bonzo family. Since that time, they have actually purchased the remaining property that's in the red square, with the exception of the yellow, which is still city-owned. And once they finalized their purchase of that additional property, they came to us and said, would we be willing to sell back the 5.85 acres that shows up in yellow to kind of square it off, since they're on both sides of the property. They're a great family. They're easy to work with. And we basically went back to our appraisals. It appraised for around $5,000 an acre. So I approached Ellen and said, would that work for you? She agreed. So the contract you have before you is for the purchase of that yellow area of land to allow them to own that entire square, just to the northeast of our Monty Industrial Park. And Kim is here to answer any questions.
Yeah, hi.
Well, they own all around the yellow.
They
Yep.
do indeed.
Two
So-
parcels to the north, to the east and south.
Yeah, all around the yellow in the red.
Everything
Yeah.
within the red surrounding the yellow is theirs.
Yeah, well, I can understand.
What does that leave us with out there, acreage-wise?
Everything, 108. I mean, this part, right now, what we don't have tied up into the transload facility is actually under contract by a farmer to take care of it and farm and do some ag work on the southern side. This piece is always, since it's next to, there's another residence just to the south of that bottom red line. So we're definitely not in a hurry to get up around there, because that's, when industrial meets residential, it's kind of an issue. So right now, we still have the 100 acres that we've always had. I think it's actually 88 or something like that, but it's just shy of 100, and there's plenty of room to develop. And this really is good news to us, because at some point, we kind of wanted to account for the residences up there anyway. So this is really just cleaning up our own map for us and allowing the Bonzos to continue to grow their footprint.
Well, that's what I was getting at, that 5 acres. We probably wouldn't put a industrial industry in their property. It'd be better for them to own that than us. And like you said, we have 100 acres plus left. So if there's no further questions, I would move to approve.
I'd second. Been moved and seconded to approve the sale of the contract. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item C, resolution number 1275. Consider approval of resolution number 1275, declaring the building located at 211 North Broadway as blighted with respect to the Kansas Small Cities Community Development Block Grant Program.
All right.
Kim.
Yes.
Period.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. The city of Pittsburgh is always looking for ways to partner with business owners to help improve really anywhere in town, but our downtown buildings and preserve the original architecture and put them back into productive use. In order to do that, most of the time that takes grant support, as you guys are aware. So this is just the first step in declaring this building at 211 North Broadway as a blighted structure within the Community Development Block Grant Program. They have grant funding available to assist private property owners in renovations of these buildings. So this is just declaring that it needs some work. The structure has dilapidated roof, guttering, windows, doors, floors. Repairs are needed, especially on the front of the building for the structural and historic integrity of that structure. They would actually have to pull the front of the building off, reinforce and restabilize the building, and then put the front facade back on. So there's extensive work needed there per a structural engineer report. So as you can imagine, it can get pretty costly. So by passing this resolution and declaring it a blighted structure, we can then take the next steps to begin to apply for a CDBG grant to do the renovations.
Thank you.
If there's no questions, I would move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion, it's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 1275. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Item D, Aquatic Center slides. Consider staff recommendations to waive the city's bid policy to enter into an agreement with Raindrop Incorporated in the amount of $45,000.45 to refurbish the Aquatic Center flume and family wave slides. Toby, good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I may need some tech support to get to my pictures. Oh. So in 2013 was the last time that we have actually resurfaced the slides at the Aquatic Center. Obviously, after 10 years of high UV exposure, a lot of use, it's now time to consider. And this one will differ from the last time. Last time it was just a straight prep and gel coat. And now we will have to, as you can see by some of the pictures, there's some cracking, some safety concerns. So we will have to do some lamination and a little bit more extensive work. And this is through our partnership with Sourcewell. It's a joint cooperative purchasing agency that we're partnered with, and Raindrop is the contractor. And if you have any questions, ask away.
Are there any contractors locally available to do this kind of work?
We have had some auto body shops do some small repairs in the past, but this is a pretty specialized field. So I feel more comfortable with a total reverberation going with a company that has been doing this for quite some time.
Move to accept.
Second, I do have a question. Able to get this done before the pool opens?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Weather permitting.
weather permitting.
And that 45 cents is pretty important at the end of the 45,000?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve item D. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Any non-agenda reports or requests? Darren?
Yeah, I just want to recognize, I'm careful to recognize staff because as soon as you recognize 3 people, you leave 297 out. But we've had a little stretch of interesting weather, so I think it always began for the staff when we had just a series of water main breaks during the real cold spell. And at some point, I believe we worked right through one weekend, so you're into that 10th, 11th day. So I definitely want to acknowledge the folks that were outside. The police are always outside, the fire department's always outside. We all walk into City Hall, we're outside. People are throwing salt, but there are definitely crews that are outside more than others, and during this time of year, I just don't want them to ever feel like we take them for granted. Working in a ditch when it's wet, in the middle of the night. Although it's already cold, feels a lot colder, and we all know what that feels like. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understands that Topeka just finished a boil order. That's our state capital, so things like that can happen to anybody. Hopefully it doesn't happen to us, but there's people out there that we have that are very high-quality individuals, and they work their tail off, and sometimes they don't get a lot of recognition, but when they put in that kind of time and effort, I want to make sure they know, we know what they're doing, and that our water's going to come on, and our kids are going to have clean, warm bodies, and we're going to have clean water to drink. So we just want to make sure that we acknowledged everybody that's out there, all 300 of them, the ones that work inside and outside, but specifically under the cold, frigid temperatures. Some very extreme work there, so thank you. That's all I've got.
Very, very well done by all. Those are not great conditions for anybody, but thank you to all that answered the call and came out and did your job. So appreciate that very much. Every day, but especially in the unforgiving weather days. So, anyone else?
I'd just like to say that one morning, Darren, and it was at 20th and Walnut, it was on a bus route, and I don't know what the temperature was, but it was pretty low. And the bus driver started talking about a main break, and I had to go through that area for one of my stops, and it was pretty good flow of water. But just like you said, those guys got out there, and I don't know how long it took them, but they had it repaired, and by the afternoon route, the road was open, and people were able to use it. So yes, they're out in the heat and the cold, and I'm glad you recognize them, because that is a job I would not want to do, or anybody, but in that kind of extreme temperature.
Okay, anyone else?
We have been asked several times to consider the resolution on the Medicaid expansion, so I don't know how people want to, if and when, and maybe not, how you want to proceed or put that on the agenda to discuss, or, but we have been asked, so I don't think we can just not do any, I don't think we can ignore talking about it, so.
I mean, this is an appropriate time to discuss it since it wasn't on the agenda. We'd be happy to put it on the agenda if you feel more comfortable discussing it as an agenda item, but we can discuss it right now easily enough, and then if you guys come to consensus, we can obviously, does it have to be put on the agenda to vote on it?
Yes.
So we'd have to have that at the next meeting, but we can definitely discuss it now.
Anyone thoughts?
I mean, it's 1,500 additional individuals in Crawford County eligible for Medicaid, so, and it is one of the priorities from the chamber.
Well, and it's a priority of the league.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we spend a lot of time with the league actively. I'm going up there tomorrow to attend another meeting and participate in City Hall Day. They do represent us. This is one of those situations where I think a loud voice and a big voice is sometimes better than a small voice. I know it's important to all of us. I know how I feel about it personally. But I also know it's critical. We've got millions of dollars coming from the legislature and our representatives for the wastewater treatment plant. We've got a $40 million request for a crime center. We've got $17 million for the Guerrilla Rising project. I think I always caution that we stay in our lane and don't put ourselves out there too much on something that, A, we're not going to be able to have a significant impact as a community when we're already represented by the group that represents all communities, and give somebody that maybe looking for a reason to tell us no on something, that, given that reason, I think, I don't want to say much more than that, because I know personally how I feel, and I know these stories are stories that I understand very well and agree with, but I do think we are represented on this policy item by a very large group. I just throw that out there for consideration in addition to whatever you want to say.
My comments, Darren, is we had that discussion, me and you, about that, what we might want from the state. And I'm not saying that this is not something that, that maybe we need to do, but you have to listen, for me, to make an opinion on it, you have to listen to both sides. I had opportunity recently to listen to a side that was not in favor of Medicaid expansion. And, you know, I think we elect people at the state level to make those decisions. I don't think we have an impact what they're gonna do, but I would kind of follow up with what Senator Schallenberger said. I would like to send some kind of a letter to the legislators, at least get this on the floor and have a discussion, let them decide what will happen, so.
I think that's a good point, Chuck.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, maybe that's if everyone's not comfortable with this resolution, I definitely think that as a body, I would like to see us at least encourage our legislators to encourage the leadership to bring it to the floor for discussion and vote. So,
If we draft, I don't want to cut off anybody's comments. Anybody have anything? If we can draft that for the next commission meeting, pretty simple. And I think I've heard that from several people. And like I said, I'll be up there tomorrow. And most of the time I'm representing you, but sometimes I'm representing me. And I'm going to continue to talk to our representatives about how they feel, because I understand their precarious position as well. But if you'd like us to draft something, by all means, we can do that for the next meeting, just saying that we would appreciate that you give it time and consideration, not necessarily taking a position one way or another. Is that kind of where we're
I agree
at?
with that.
I would like to ask Mr. Patrick, what's the opposition? Why are people opposed to it?
I wish I could answer that question, Dr. Siegley. You know, I believe that there is a philosophy that's been put forward since the Reagan administration, and I would ask you all to go to YouTube and remind yourselves that he said that the 9 most important words, the 9 most frightening words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And that suggests to me that that was a moment in our history in which there was an idea planted that somehow the government was the enemy of the people. And that has taken root among some, that somehow the government is not our fellow citizens that we elect to solve issues, to solve problems, but rather it is to be feared and to be defunded and made as small as possible, somehow that the government is intervening in our lives in a negative way. And I would suggest to you that you are elected and all officials are elected to solve problems, to debate the best solutions to problems, and that we have a significant portion of the people in Crawford County who do not have medical assistance, who can't afford medical care, and yet those people are out stocking the shelves in our stores. They are serving us at convenience stores. They are contributing, and somehow we don't have a concern for them.
Medical care out there.
yes, we are getting medical. We still have about 14% of our patients who don't have access to insurance.
To what?
14% of our patients still do not have access to.
But that's why you're in the program. That's why you're a government entity.
We're not a government
You're getting-
entity.
well,
We
you-
get federal funds to care for
Right.
the uninsured. So Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yes.
saying. You get federal funds to take care of the.
But we're not
uninsured.
everywhere. I mean, we're not everywhere, and we have lots of barriers in Crawford County and transportation to get to one of our clinics. But to answer your specific question, why, what's the opposition? The opposition in the past, the language has been that there's a portion of Medicaid expansion that will be funded by the federal government, and the argument not to expand is that when that assistance goes away, the state will be held with the bucket of money that we'll have to come up with. The governor's most recent plan on Medicaid expansion indicates that if the federal assistance goes away, then our state program ceases. So there will be no obligation on the state to continue that. So that, you know, she
Well,
has.
that was the first thing I ever heard about this, about 3 or 4 years ago, was that, you know, the state's gonna have to make up the difference if the government says we're only gonna get X amount of dollars
Right.
this time. And that was put out by the Kansas Hospital Association.
But the governor,
And Brian Jones did a good job of, I think, highlighting that at the last meeting about that very thing was the governor's, position on that. I think it would be important if we are gonna put a letter in to reference that decision,
Right.
the governor's decision that, that we take note of that. And, that being said, we would support putting it to a vote.
I'm really good at writing stuff about my family and what my yard looks like, but paraphrasing
Yeah, that's
policies,
true.
I mean, if somebody,
Yeah.
maybe somebody to my left that just spoke for 2 minutes and said some really smart stuff, if one of you would like to draft something to get us going, I'd be happy to like make it politically neutral, but if you could give us
yeah, I can give you
what you
some
would want
language.
included in there, obviously.
Everybody
we-
look at Dawn.
Yeah, obviously, we could amend it
Yeah.
during the commission meeting if there was language somebody wasn't comfortable with, so I don't want Don to go out and meet with all of you and write a piece of policy that you all,
No, I mean,
that's
what-
gonna break about
But
30
do we
rules.
really know the both sides of in order to make an educated decision as far as ourselves? I mean, the lawmakers are the ones at the top that need to, and then,
I think-
I think we show in the form of a letter, short of a resolution, that, yes, put it to a vote. That we would support putting it to a vote, letting people debate it.
But even-
Where it needs to be
Letting
debated.
the
But
normal-
even that letter, you can vote no if you don't want it to do the letter. I'm just being directed to pull a letter together
Sure.
that
Right.
I'm gonna have to literally call 3 of you and interview you to put it together. If one of you could write it, we can bring it in. If you don't wanna vote for it.
no,
don't vote
literally,
for it.
you could spend all
in
day
favor of the letter
knowing
to
what
vote.
all the on both sides, and it's still complicated, so.
Right, and our letter isn't take a side, our letter is follow the expected process of a legislative body and bring it to the floor for a vote.
And
Yeah.
debate
Being
it,
held
debate it in
hostage.
Topeka. Debate
Yeah,
it in
debate it in
Topeka, where
Topeka.
it's supposed to be debated.
And then as individuals, we can contact our legislators, so.
And
Are
you
you
know,
comfortable
Doc,
with that?
Doc
Yeah.
asked the question, why are people opposed to it? I think, and we don't need to go into all that and have back and forth, but to have that answered, that people are opposed to it, we need to hear from them, not from Bert saying you don't know why they're opposed to it. That's the opportunity I had to listen to a little bit of opposition. I don't know enough about it to recommend one or the other, but I am in favor, and I think we all are, of drafting some sort of letter and requesting our legislature have a debate and bring it to a vote.
And maybe we can direct, a lot of people don't know where part of the city stops, the county starts, the state is. Our representatives are in town, sometimes at the end of every month for a legislative coffee. They go over this, that's the group you should be talking to. I'm not lecturing, you can talk to me anytime, Bert. I talked to you 3 times this week, I think, about stuff. But just keep in mind, we're just simply gonna pull together a letter saying, would you please have this conversation at the state level where this decision can be made? And anybody that's watching that's gonna come in here, direct your stuff to our state reps.
Right. Yeah.
They're the ones that are gonna be
Yeah.
weighing in on this. I mean, this
They
is
have
not
emails, they have
gonna be the
phones, yeah,
city's
I mean,
decision.
let
But I
them-
know
let
it's
them know.
controversial, so.
I
Thank
would
you.
have,
Anybody else?
What else do you have?
So,
May-
thank you, Bert. So I think that was a nice segue, what Darren said earlier, into the last item. I'd like to build on Commissioner Sigley, Doc Sigley's mayor's moment. I'd like to do something, I don't know, for lack of a better catchphrase, Pittsburgh positive. I just think there's a lot of good things happening in Pittsburgh. I know we talk about them from time to time, but sometimes I feel like those things get lost in the shuffle, and sometimes you only do hear the negatives. We got to hear the negatives with the positive. I can tell you in my career in law enforcement, I'm not a glasses half full kind of guy. I tend to struggle with not being jaded by things that I've seen over the years, and I know many of you guys do too, and people in public service. But I think it's important to know that if you want to find negative, you'll find negative. So I'd like to just point out a positive, and we've heard a lot about it over the last couple months. But I just happened to notice a document from Wesley House, and I just think, we've heard about it several times over the past couple meetings, about doing something as a community and having a coalition, and I just want you to know that those things are happening. And one of the things with regards to homelessness, I just saw a figure here. Exits from homelessness to housing due in part because of the mission of Wesley House and they're quick to tell you, it's not them, it's the collaborative community effort. But exiting from homelessness to housing, in 2022, there were 37 people that affected. In 2023, there were 78. That's a 110% increase of getting people out of the homeless situation and into housing. So I know Wesley House and other community partners are quick to be judged and do draw a lot of negative attention and fire, but I don't want their mission and what they do to get lost in the shuffle, because they are making a difference. They are serving their community, and I think there's plenty of opportunity for everybody out there who's quick to say, what are we doing? We need to do something. This is unacceptable. We all see the same thing. This is our home. Obviously, we ran for city commission to represent our community. And I believe that, all 5 of us. So we see the same things. We understand. All I can say is on the things that affect you criminally, continue to call the police department. Continue to report those things. They can't do anything about it if they're not notified of it. And sometimes social media posts don't do that. They don't have the staffing to monitor social media posts to see what's going on in the community. They rely on a phone call. So, but with Pittsburgh Positive, that's just one thing I would like to say. For this moment, I'd just like to say, wow, that's quite an improvement to go from only getting 37 out of a homeless situation into housing in 2022 to 78 in 2023. 110%, that's pretty positive, and I think that's something everybody should be proud of, especially if you had a hand in it. So those are things I'd like to do every meeting. We got 26 meetings, so I would just like to, if somebody has somebody that's made a difference in their lives or the community's lives, please let me know about it, so we can consider mentioning those things in Pittsburgh Positive going forward. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I second it.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Megan.
No, I don't want to.
And Kim.